you're getting benefit from a cost perspective, or that you're getting more services for the cost that you're paying today. So as we look at designing this network, making sure that, day one, those customers who are interested in this network, in fiber connectivity and want to be connected to a next generation service provider, that we're routing that fiber appropriately to connect them, but we're also taking the most effective route to pick up the most traffic along that route as well. So, those day two customers, those next customers who want to be a part of this network, it's cost effectively to pick them up and connect them to the network. Engineering with high fiber count cables, right? There's, certainly the amount of glass that's in the cable, making sure that we're not having the expensive portion of this is actually hanging that cable or pulling it in, making sure that we don't have to do that very often. And then the flexibility to meet the bandwidth scale that customers are looking to, right? Whether it's gigabit, whether it's 10 gigabit or 100 gigabit, making sure that we're meeting the demands for the future, for that automated machine learning, making sure that we're well positioned for the future. And then the services, right? Making sure that they're the services the customers are looking for, whether it's, connecting multiple locations together, whether it's connecting, your business to the internet, whether it's, just security services, making sure that we have those breadth of services that covers the needs of the business. Right, the broadband infrastructure is the foundation, right? Infrastructure, right? It's like the roads, and it's like the power utility company. In fact, I would say that it's more important than the power utility company because, again, the millennials that are out there, and, I see people on their phones now, right? It's the lifeblood, right? It doesn't matter if the lights go out in here, right? You still need to have access to the outside world, right? So the foundation for tomorrow. So what is the benefit and opportunity to the foundation, to the community, right? I'm not going to go through all of these line by line, but I'll tell you where there's challenges, right? That's where there's opportunity. That's what Amazon has done in every market that they've gone into. They've went and solved the hardest thing, and they've disrupted that industry, right? And just to put that in terms, they bought Whole Foods, right? People hate standing in checkout lines. So you can now go in, pay with your phone, walk out, and you don't have to talk to anybody. You're just walking out of the store. It's legalized shoplifting, right? So where there's opportunity, right, where there's challenges, there's opportunity. And those, those challenges that we have today are certainly opportunity for this next generation network of the future. But beyond that, right, there is economic development. There's jobs that, right, we can train employees in Clark County, right? Clark College may be able to get the bandwidth that they, maybe that they need up here, but where are those employees going to go if we don't solve the greater bandwidth, right? That greater issue of connectivity in Clark County and Vancouver, right? Those companies are going to go elsewhere. They won't move, and they won't stay here in Vancouver and Clark County and Ridgefield, right? They will go elsewhere. So this is an opportunity to bring jobs to the area, right? Not only jobs for a service provider, right? This immediate service provider, but also others that will be associated with it. It's an investment opportunity, right? The bandwidth, as I've painted here, right? That bandwidth isn't going to stop. There will continue to be an increased need for bandwidth, right? That's going to continue to drive. That's not going to change. So wouldn't you want to invest your money in something that's continuing to grow, that's going to continue to be a demand? Like I said, less than, 11% of America has adopted fiber, right? That's connecting everything from the home to, residents and businesses. But less than 50% of commercial buildings have a fiber entrance, right? That's still a lot of businesses that are not connected with fiber. That's still, right? You think about New York, I'm sure New York has plenty of buildings connected with fiber, but there's still a significant gap. And then at the end of the day, cost savings to the businesses. So just highlighting a few of the success stories. This is my last slide beside questions, right? Like Brad laid out, Dudley was an integral part. He was the founder of Integra Electric Lightwave back in 1994. We grew it to an 11-state region. We were building, fiber all across those 11 states. It sold it ended up selling in 2016 to Zayo for $1.42 billion, right? So that's, certainly successful. Certainly helped a lot of customers, right, meet the demands that they were looking for. Hopefully improving that customer experience along the way. But you have some more municipal type, fiber networks as well. All of the PUDs in the state of Washington, right? Chelan being one of them, have, or most of them, I won't say all of them, have, fiber networks where they've built these networks. They're leasing those assets. They've been able to attract large businesses to those communities because of the fiber and the broadband infrastructure that they've built. Tacoma, Washington built in its day, it was a world-class fiber infrastructure, attracting hundreds of tech jobs, hundreds of businesses to Tacoma because of that fiber network, because they were a tier 2 city at the time, right? And they realized it, and they did a great job of building a network up there. And then Danville, Virginia as well was another one there. That's a community of about 40,000 that had the foresight, the vision to build a fiber-based infrastructure. So just to wrap this up, right, that we're still, we're about halfway through, a feasibility study for the foundation to take a look at whether this is feasible. But there's plenty of opportunity here. I think it's a really exciting project, really exciting to be part of the vision with Brad, and I will open it up to a few questions that yeah.
Just as Lisa said, for historical perspective, we started this process just intellectually with Brent on July 31, right? And Brent was moving it forward, finally got it all accomplished in terms of getting ports having the ability now to lay fiber. And so that's a big win for all port districts in the state of Washington, and thanks to Brent taking that leadership. But that's where it kind of started, and Brent was saying back then, because we didn't have that, you did not have that authority, how can you help us? And so I said, well, I may know some people. So Dudley and I were on this board on EQT, and that started. So we're at a point where we're just doing the feasibility for all of Clark County, looking at the Discovery Corridor, but we'll figure out how we can continue to dance with the people that brought us to the dance, which is Richfield Port. So we'll figure all that out as we go forward, as we get data, as we understand the opportunity. And I just wanted to throw that in for the historical perspective and how we'll work together here in Richfield.
Awesome. Thank you. Questions? How much do you think it's going to cost? That's a great question. I'm going to defer that for right now until the end of the feasibility study. We're still working through that process, so. So I would say, realistically, our target goal for the feasibility study is to have that completed by the 15th of June. And after that, whether we determine whether it's feasible or not, I would say, from that date, certainly there will be, how is this entity going to be set up, structured? Who's going to invest in this entity? And, it's going to take a bit of time, and then there's the build, starting the build. So I would say, an estimate would be 12 to 18 months before that first customer is turned on to the network. If it, It all depends on permitting, but I would say that, having a major ring built is probably, within 24 months, you could look to have, a major ring built throughout Clark County. The competition, as we look at it, is your traditional service providers, which it's, a few in the area, right? I mean, you're looking at the traditional ones, the CenturyLinks, the Comcasts. I don't know of anybody else who's looking at building a greenfield network within Clark County today. Brent, I don't know if you know of anybody.
And those two providers are really easy to deal with. Newt? Newt?
So, will this, how soon will we saturate access in the whole market area? Or is this primarily I-5 corridor and Vancouver and
No, right now we're looking at everything, covering Clark County with a major ring. So being able to get to most businesses within Clark County pretty easily. So it's certainly not every street is covered. So that takes years, right, to get to that point. But this will certainly cover a lot of the major businesses, a lot of the corridors that need to be covered, and that. Yeah, for that major portion of it, there will certainly be additional connections that will go beyond that, right? A network is a living, breathing thing, right? It continues to grow and scale over time.
As Jason said, also, this idea of a ring is really important. Some institutions have single access. If that single access is cut, you're out of business. The ring will provide, if let's say the tree goes down, or as he said, a truck runs into it, it'll go back the reverse side. You'll continue to have redundancy somewhere in the system.
Well, and I'll just say one other thing real quick, kind of along those lines, right? The Port of Vancouver, right, they have some pretty significant businesses in the Port of Vancouver, right, that are down there. They have zero fiber. They have no fiber from CenturyLink, from Comcast. They have no fiber-based services in the Port of Vancouver, which is, to me, a pretty major, area for our economy.
will you have to establish your own franchise agreements with all of the jurisdictions? All of the purveyors operate their franchise.
Right.
Will that be and you foresee that as any kind of a timeline challenge, or?
Certainly working through franchise agreements is something that, right, this would be an entity that would have to, abide by all of that, absolutely. Those are all kind of, worked within my timeline, and, usually they're not that complex, the franchise agreements, so.
Sir?
Both. We would look at both aerial and underground facilities where available. Right. Certainly, there's some costs. There's reasons why you would do both. The cost perspective, aerial's cheaper to build, but you would want underground in key areas, and it's a matter of designing the network, right, to make sure the reliability is built in. Certainly aerial's more prone to some things, but if you have the right design of the network, that's not an issue. That's the model that we're working through, right? And certainly it's, what makes a business feasible is having revenue and having customers on the network. So when you reach a certain point of having enough customers on the network, then you become profitable. So that's the picture that we're painting as part of the model.
We will have very clear return on invested capital estimates and the timeframes.
So that's certainly an option for this, right? There's certainly creating an asset like this that has value, right? That's one exit strategy that you could look at. There's others as well, right? It's my belief that, all those acquisitions that have taken place, there's a lack of regional providers, there's a lack of local providers as well, right? So bringing some of those providers together under one umbrella and creating a larger entity is another option for this entity. So there's multiple directions this could go.
And President Bob, I also think if you do this right the first time, you'll have a public-private partnership design, and certain institutions could have certain rights in perpetuity. I mean, again, we're not at step 17. So we're just trying to get the feasibility of a business plan, then we can figure out how it makes sense so that everyone can be better served. We can attract technology companies. We can serve the needs of Clark as we proceed with advanced automation. Jane.
Yeah, so the PUDs can certainly lease conduit, and you can certainly access their, some of their infrastructure that they have out there today. They lease it out to others, so that's certainly something that we're looking at, and yeah, absolutely, we would take a look at all of those options. I would say from a service cost, it wouldn't be, really any different than what they're paying for services today. Ideally, right, they're getting additional services for what they're paying today. That would be the goal.
So when Jason showed you the idea, most connections now have 1 gigabyte, right? And you're proposing probably 10 right off the bat for every connection. So in terms of capability, you'll have a lot more. But again, we won't know the answer to any of this until he gives us the study.
Your Bluetooth will still connect to your wireless device or your computer, and that'll still need to access the internet, so Wi-Fi.
Any other questions? Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. That was great. We are very much in the interim of exploring this project. There's a lot of unanswered questions. We are going to move forward with this. We are in the process. Jason's finishing up with Dudley Slater, the last few interviews that we have to put together. And then once we get that, we can pull all of this information together, and we can decide, what does this look like? What do we really need? Is there a demand or not? And if there is, what is our role in that? Our role could be simply as a customer. We need this to run a campus. We need this because we need to have that kind of access. But it also is a question, could we be an investor? Well, we very much could be. We do this all the time. And the reason we brought this forward today, not only because of the impact that it's going to have on building an entirely new campus, but we also need to look at it like we do of any other investment that we bring to the foundation and build within our portfolio of assets. And so We brought this to you to give you some of the fundamentals behind what we're talking about and this opportunity that may come our way. Very soon, as we build the case for this particular dark fiber investment, we're going to be coming back to you as a foundation board, as a college, and saying, does this make sense? Does it make sense for us, one, to be that customer, or two, does it make sense for us not only to be that customer, but also to be one of the fundamental investors? Because it's coming. The reality is it's coming. We heard today that all of this is coming down the pike. It's how we accept it. It's how we adjust to it. And we need to set our own future and make sure that we embrace it. Otherwise, we're going to get left behind. And so what does that look like? Can we make a return? I can tell you that we work on this issue every day, every month, every year. Keith Copeland runs our investment committee. We're constantly looking for opportunities in which we can get a return on investment so that we can put those investments back in the hands of the college and in our students. And so, like I said, very soon we'll be coming back to you, just like they have done with Integra. At some point in time, this will be presented out to a community of investors, and they'll make a decision. Will this entity happen or not? Somebody will make it happen. And will we be a player in that? And what that position within that company looks like, that's yet to come. But stay tuned. It's going to be very, very interesting to be involved in really looking at the fundamentals of a company, the way they present, like to a private equity firm. And we are providing some opportunities for them to get in front of our investment consultants. So there may be other investors out there within the Portland Metro that might be interested in this concept too. So there will be so much more to come, but we wanted to give you this brief look at this particular opportunity because it's going to happen really, really quickly. Bob, do you have anything that you might want to comment on this topic? Yeah. Yeah, and I just have to say we've talked about this many times with the Board of Trustees. We're all moving together hand in hand, and it's just really great. Bob had initially said, "Yeah, we're on board. Let's move this thing forward," before we had some of the legal parameters taken off the port, and. Because of some legal technicalities, the college wasn't able to come forward and actually make that investment to enter into a contract with Mode 5. We stepped up and did that, and we're proud to be able to play that role and to be that kind of a partner in this. So, like I said, stay tuned. It's going to be very, very interesting.